obvious, because you're willing to experiment. And yes, I'll agree that you can get those chemicals in those hives, but I know this year, for instance, my nukes took off like gangbusters. I didn't get a crop in August, and usually I get a decent crop in August from goldenrod. This year it was cold in August, and the goldenrod didn't produce anything. Most of my crop came in early. I'll even tell you how much crop I get. I don't know how much I got per hive because they died all summer long, or they were superseded all summer long. I started out with 85 hives this spring. I sold 85 hives to other beekeepers. I don't know what those 85 did. But I let everybody come and get my bees, and they take the pick. So I had the leftover half. I have right now over 10 barrels of honey with what I gave away and sold out of my honey house. And I got I started with 85, and I got 68 left. So you can figure the numbers any way you want. Somewhere where the divider is one of those numbers in between. I better get off my soapbox.
Thanks, Jim. And then the last question about pests is the best way to handle ants. Water boat, or what's the best way to handle ants?
Never had an ant problem.
If you're using intercovers, you can put borax, like a tablespoon of borax in the top. That usually, it depends on the kind of ants for one thing. Sometimes you can just take if you can find some really nice juicy grass, just put a couple of handfuls on top of the intercover, then put the lid on. Lots of times when you come back, there won't be any ants. I don't know what happens there. I think Charlie Hoffman is the one that told me about that, the grass.
The ants on the intercover, a little cinnamon sprinkle on there, and they're gone.
Yeah.
It's good on peanut butter and toast too. But
There are different grades of cinnamon, and you want to buy the best grade you can get for the bees.
I move them either with a forklift, which I own, and I go down south, so I got to watch out for those suckers that can't throw cover on the floor and leave it there, on the ground and leave it there, because those fire ants will be under it in no time at all. Or I just move the hive a little bit, get it away.
Okay. As you got older, how have you changed your beekeeping practice? For example, deeps versus mediums, the height of the hive, different season preps, different equipment. So, I mean, this is important because all of us are getting older. So I want to know what kind of equipment to buy now so it'll be ready later.
In 1995, I ran out of equipment. I ran out of deeps. I didn't have enough deeps when I was making my divides. So and I usually, at that time, I was producing all of my honey over 2 deeps. So for that summer, I just put a queen excluder on top of the single-story deep, and I had 10 frames in those deeps, and they were all really good combs. And I piled on the supers, and I did very well. The only problem was when I took off the supers, there was absolutely no honey in that single-story deep. The queens had used every frame in that hive to raise bees. But they actually produced more honey than my 2-story colonies did. And so I experimented with it. So as soon as I took the honey off, I would have to put a feeder on, unless there was a lot of honey coming in. And so then after I retired in 91, I experimented with that, and eventually, from 2000 on, that's the way I produced all of my honey. And then I would, in the fall, after I took the honey off, I put the feeder on the single story, and then as soon as I could, I'd go around and put the second deep over the top of that queen excluder, and I would feed them until that second deep was plumb full, and then I'd pull the queen excluder out. And then I would overwinter them that way.
So Denny, you talked about 1-story and 2-story. What are you referring to that?
I was using the deep boxes for brood chambers. So a 2-story would be 2 deeps, and a single story would be 1 deep.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
As we get older, the weight of the box is a lot of people's concern. And that 1 deep that Denny's talking about, I mean, I got it from him. Just use 1 deep if you're tired of lifting those boxes. And that's all I use now. Put a package in there, put your feeder on top. And I had, you know, I know one hive had 180 pounds in it off of 1 deep. And I'm not trying to winter them. I gave the bees away this fall. But that, you don't have to lift it. You know, I know a lot of people went to the mediums for their brood boxes because then they're, you know, not so heavy. But now you have to break your brood up. Where with just 1 deep, you're only taking 1 hive up or 1 frame out at a time. There's no lifting. It works great.
Yeah, I've never had bees in less than 2 deeps for brood chamber. Dr. Fergala always had 3 deeps, and I still put 3 on if I can. If that 3rd deep on the top is full of honey at the end of the season, I just leave it there. It's like having money in the bank. You don't have to go out and spend that. If there's 50 pounds of surplus honey there in the spring, you won't have to feed as much, and whatever the crop is the next following fall will be that much, you can take it off. I prefer the deeps. They just make nice, you know, nothing prettier than a deep frame with a perfect brood pattern in it. And the shallows just don't offer that. And yet, if you think about bees in the wild and in the wall of some old church or the trunk of some old maple tree, do you think the bees care whether they're deeps or shallows? I mean, those frames are not perfectly, you know, 9 wide and this much, and another one right on top of it. You know, those colonies and where the queen is laying and where the honey is being stored is anything but a standard Langstroth kind of formation. To me, it really doesn't matter. As long as they have honeycomb to lay in and to store excess surplus honey, it doesn't matter, I don't think, whether they're deeps or shallows. I prefer the deeps for brood and the shallows for honey, of course.
I use both, deeps and mediums. All my brood chambers are deeps. That's because that's what they want in pollination, and that's what I did for years. I'm not doing it anymore, basically doing it anymore. I've got too much pesticides going to these pollination fields and going to California where everybody and your brother, who knows what they got. I don't like to use any more chemical than I have to, but I also know when they need to be treated because I've been around it for 40 years. With hobbyists, especially if the ladies are handling them, I would recommend you go with mediums. I don't sell any brood with mediums yet because I haven't gotten rid of a lot of the old chemicals, or the old frames, not chemicals. But anyway, I try to rotate a new frame in every nuke I bring back. I don't always succeed in doing that because I don't always have enough bees to handle the frames I got. So if you're new and you're or old, I'd love to be all down to 6 5/8 anymore because I am ancient. I had a birthday yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. I'm going to go on to the back of the sheet here. For a newbie, how many hives should I start with and why?
Two's, I think we'd all agree, 2. No less than 2. You get nothing to compare it to if you only have 1. And many times those of us up here that have mentored other beekeepers, they start with 2 and something happens. And by the time the honey flow rolls around, they only have 1. If they just started with 1 and that was the one that failed, for whatever reason, they swarmed, they superseded, the queen died, whatever reason, they didn't thrive. So that's not usually the case. If you start with 2, usually you're wintering 2, but not always. So if you start with 1, you run the risk of not having a full cycle, a full season. More than 2 for a beginner, yeah, I've seen that too, but first year, gosh, 2's plenty. You can learn as much from 2 hives as you can learn from 22 hives. You don't need more than 2 hives as a beginner.
I guess we all agree with 2 is the minimum.
2 is the minimum. The reason being, there's a couple of reasons. One, you're going to lose some. The old rule of thumb, I don't know if I've heard this many a time. If you buy 4 hives, you're going to get 1 junk hive, 1 super hive, and 2 in between. So if you're going to make your judgment on 1 hive, which one have you got?
Yeah, for me, I always get the mean hive.
But if you get that 1 super hive, suddenly you're dreaming of being a commercial beekeeper. And the next year, you might not have those super hives.
Okay, now we'll move on to swarms. Any difficult swarm stories? And keep it within half an hour or 45 minutes.
I've never captured a swarm.
Well, I've captured a fair number, and they're kind of fun. And it's so easy, especially if you can get to it. I mean, if they're way high, I don't go off the ground to get a swarm. But if they're in a little low-hanging limb, which is a lot of times the case, I just have a funnel with a plastic bag or a box, if you want to put it right under it. And just grab the limb, give it a shake, and zip it down in the bag, and away you go. $80.
Any other difficult swarm stories? All right, $80. Do you hunt for swarms with traps, or if you found that works or didn't work? Has nobody hunted for swarms with like a...
I never actually hunted for swarms, but that one year I had 18 swarms. Luckily, only 4 were from my own hives. But I would get calls.
Yeah.
Okay. And of these 18 swarms and that, okay, almost all of them were easy to get. Okay. Every once in a while, you get one that's 20 or 30 feet in the air. You say, yeah, thank you very much, goodbye. Okay. But most of them were relatively easy to get. And the other thing we did have, I did notice is if you do have a swarm, an area, a lot of the swarms happen to end up on the same tree and very, very close together. Okay. Now, I don't know what this is because they've been there before, or it's convenient, or what, but it don't happen. The other thing that on swarming, by the way, I have a whole hour and a half on swarming.
Which we've had here at SEMBA, by the way, so...
I think you've seen it here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if they do swarm, generally speaking, you can almost count on early spring, a lot of food, crowded hives, and especially if there's been, say, cold weather for a week or so, cold and rainy weather for a week, you get a nice warm day, and maybe the second nice warm day between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, they will probably swarm if they're needed. It just happens that way, or it seems to happen that way.
Yeah.
One of the reasons the swarms come back to the same branch time after time is because there's a pheromone that's left there, and that attracts the next queen. Usually the bees follow the queen, and she will go right back to that same branch again. But I did have a lot of observations of